All right, everyone, hello and welcome in. Thank you for joining me on this fine Monday evening. Very interesting start to the week for Minnesota sports across the board. You have the Timberwolves playing pretty decent basketball. You've got the return of the Minnesota Wild tonight as the NHL has concluded their All-Star break, which feels like that All-Star break takes an eternity, if I could just throw that out there. I seriously have missed hockey. I'm just glad it's back tonight. They dropped the puck against the Coyotes in a few hours, so very excited to check in on that and see how the Wild come out of the All-Star break and go into the second half of the season. I saw a picture of the Minnesota Twins spring training hat online today, and it was kind of weird. I'm not sure about this design. I'll put a picture of it up on the screen. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. Not a Twins fan personally, Red Sox fan, but that was just a very interesting design choice, if I could put it that way. But I think the team that's stealing the headlines for Minnesota sports today, anyway, is the Minnesota Vikings, because they have named their new defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, former assistant coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, somebody who was a front runner for the current vacancy that is the head coaching position for the Arizona Cardinals, and somebody who was on their short list, the Minnesota Vikings short list, to be the defensive coordinator, one of their top two choices, if you will, in terms of candidates. The other candidate, whose name escapes me at the moment, signed with the Carolina Panthers almost immediately after being let out of his contract. I believe he's coming from the Denver Broncos, and he will be joining the Carolina Panthers and Frank Wright's ever-growing, very good coaching staff with the Carolina Panthers. So the Minnesota Vikings make a splash today. I think the overall online reaction to this has been very positive in the past hour and a half. There's accounts reacting to this from fans and blogs of teams that are in our division rivals, seemingly all to agree that this is a very big deal. This is a very big hire, very strong move for the Minnesota Vikings, and I think I would agree with that. Now, my initial reaction to the vacancy for the defensive coordinator position for the Vikings, I put out a video last week and a half ago, very blatantly saying that I didn't care, really, ultimately, who the next defensive coordinator was, as long as it was somebody different, because there's nowhere to go but up for this defense. And at the time, my justification for not really caring who the next person was, not making a big deal out of it, was the fact that this defense last year was so bad that the next guy really can't do much worse, right? There's nowhere to go but up, because we were ranked so low in the standings compared to other defenses in the league. And I think that Brian Flores represents a good solid direction, something that's going to definitely jolt some juice into this defense, if you will. Now, there's still very big time personnel questions. I think that this is going to make it more interesting to see how the rest of the offseason plays out now that we know who is going to be the guy. And it's going to be interesting to see what veterans they keep and what different changes that they have to make, because there's going to be changes because they have to be made because the defense was bad. You can't run it back with the same defensive unit and just assume that the coaching was the problem. Maybe it was a big part of it, but let's be realistic. We saw what Eric Kendricks can't do on the field anymore, and we saw the problems that are created by not having good enough depth because your draft classes for the last X amount of years haven't panned out. So there's definitely personnel changes and problems that Brian Flores will face in his first year as defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. I will make a prediction. I do think that this is going to sort of lead to the result of Harrison Smith staying with the Vikings, and it might be a restructure on the contract, or maybe they do something to lower his cap hit. But I think Harrison Smith's going to stay. I think Harrison Smith stays with the team this year, just based on this hiring alone. I'd be surprised if they move on from him. Zadarius Smith, that's a 50-50 for me. Definitely moving on from Eric Kendricks, I would guess. That's my educated guess for that. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with this 3-4. I'm not really too worried about the 3-4 base continuing to be the base defense for the Minnesota Vikings, because it's a 4-2-5 anyway for most people in the league, because everybody's running spread offenses, 3 receiver sets. You got to have a nickel corner in there. We're definitely going to need a new nickel corner, because I believe Shannon Sullivan is a free agent and they're probably not going to bring him back. The cornerback depth continues to be a problem. We will be addressing that in future videos as we continue to talk about prospects in the draft. Definitely need to inspect the draft class and the corner position as we go through the offseason. There was one player reaction I saw from the Vikings, and I clipped it. I'll put it on the screen here. Brian Asamoah, because it feels like Brian Flores, the one big change he's going to bring to the table is way more blitzing, because that's something that Brian Asamoah should be very good at. I'm very excited about the development of this of this guy this year, this offseason, this spring training, the whole 9 yards, to see what he's going to be able to bring to the table. He's definitely somebody that's going to get more playing time, and I think he's earned it. So we're definitely going to be blitzing a lot more, which is just a far cry difference from what we had from the Ed Donatel super prevent shell defense, give up nothing deep, but give up everything underneath and make Daniel Jones look like Joe Montana in the playoffs. So let me know what your guys' reaction is to this hiring. Do you think that this is the best outcome that they could have had? I'm actually kind of glad that it's not Mike Pettin, even though like I don't have a problem with Mike Pettin and he's got a history of being a good coach and good defensive coordinator, but Mike Pettin feels like it would have been a rehash or like a refurbish, if you will. I don't really know how to describe it, but it would have felt like more of the same and not really any change. So I think Brian Flores, having the name recognition, being a former head coach, being somebody who's, coached with really good defenses, I think that this is the right direction to go. So very excited to see how this plays out. I think this is a good hire, and the reception to this so far has been positive. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. That's going to do it for me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.